Hi guys, welcome to Peace Talk podcast. Today's guest is Colin Kubik. He's an American who's living in Ukraine and who's doing stand-up in Ukrainian. We had a very interesting conversation about humor, psychology of humor, his decision about living and performing in Ukraine. I think you're gonna find this episode very interesting. So enjoy the view, and after, give this video a like. Okay, Colin, it's really nice to see you again in Lviv. I remember we met in stand-up battle club in Sorry, in Ukraine they always pronounce it as bottle, and then like I just and also like
as bottle.
Bottle, yeah, it sounds like bottle. They also pronounce like cult comedy hall, which it's cult. Spelled cult, but they pronounce it here as cult, and that's what I'm used to saying. So we met in cult comedy hall about like a year and a half ago or so. We were just doing our first English open mics, but you were performing even before that because you've been performing in Ukrainian, right?
Yeah, I was performing probably from like September of 2021 in Ukrainian. I think I did it once in like September, and then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then a couple months passed, and I was like, okay, I should probably do it. And I started writing a little bit more. And then after that, I think in like probably January we met, and I don't remember exactly when, but
around that time.
It was before the war started.
Yeah. So you started your stand-up career or stand-up adventure, I don't know, because there's no money in it, but it's difficult to call it a career. So you started it right here in Lviv, right?
Yes,
so you never done stand-up before?
Never done stand-up. Told jokes. Made people laugh, but I started it here. I was at work one day, bored, not doing my work, and I was like, I'm gonna write bits, and I wrote probably about 7 minutes about my experience in Ukraine, and then after that, what was your question?
So you started doing stand-up in Lviv. That's
yes.
And your first performance was in Ukraine.
Yes, my first performance was at Money Mike, and I won. But I wasn't really happy about it because I invited probably 10 of my friends, and so it wasn't very
so you cheated
it was kind of not fair that I won.
I mean, if you have 10 friends, good for you.
Yeah, well, and then I was just like, oh, those jokes weren't very good. I could only hear people laughing that were my friends. I couldn't really hear anything else. And I remember in the start of my first set, I forgot. I was like, oh, I forgot. And then I was just frozen on stage. But for some reason, I still won. I got money.
Nice. So how long have you been doing stand-up for now?
Now, I mean, since it's that September, so whatever that is, like a little over a year and a half. And was the last 10 months in the States, and was just writing jokes.
Okay, so let's talk about your background a little bit. So you are an American, but you live in Ukraine. And when did you move to Ukraine?
Well, I moved to Ukraine. It's hard to say. My first time in Ukraine was in 2012, and I was in Transcarpathia in a little village or town. It's not a village, but a little city called Vinogradov. And I was there working with kids, orphans, kids from families that might not be the best families. And it was just a camp working with kids. And then I also visited relatives in the east, or in the west, in Rivne, in Dubno is the city where I have relatives. And my grandparents were from Ukraine. So it was about 11 years ago when I first came to Ukraine. Came every year back to Ukraine to go to that camp, but then I wanted to learn more about the language, learn more about the culture, and spend a lot more time here. And then I moved to Chernihiv, lived in Chernihiv for a year, volunteering with kids with disabilities. And then after that, I was wasn't very happy with my language like progression. I thought like I'm going to go there, I'm going to be in the culture, I'm going to learn the language like in a week. And it didn't happen. And at that time I was learning Russian because in Chernihiv they primarily speak Russian, and I was speaking Russian there. And the director of the center where I worked, he's from Western Ukraine. He was always asking me, when are you going to learn Ukrainian? When are you going to learn Ukrainian? And he often spoke to me in Ukrainian. And then after that year, I wanted to stay in Ukraine, but I needed to find other opportunities. And I joined the Peace Corps and was in the Peace Corps for 2 years. And it's from the American government, founded by JFK in like the 60s, and was in a small village in Chernivtsi region for 2 years. And then after that, I was like, I still want to be here. I don't want to go back home, and I want to go back to school. I want to go back to school. I want to start studying, and I was interested in psychology. And then I applied to Ukrainian Catholic University, got in because I'm American, not because I'm smart, and got into Ukrainian Catholic University, and now I'm in my 4th year at UKU and will finish this July, and that's my life.
Wow, that's very interesting. Can you tell us more about Peace Corps? I think a lot of people would love to hear more what that's about.
First of all, it's Peace Corps.
Peace Corps.
There's a P the P is silent.
Okay. Peace Corps.
Peace Corps. Yeah, I don't know why. English is a weird language. So when I joined the Peace Corps, I wanted to. You can choose which country you want to go to, and that doesn't necessarily mean you'll go to that country. But before I joined Peace Corps, when I was living in Chernihiv, I met a bunch of volunteers that were going through training. You go through 3 months of kind of pretty intensive language training, intensive culture, and working within Ukraine training.
Where's that happening? The training, is it in Ukraine or in
It's America? In Ukraine. It depends. When I was doing it, it was in Chernihiv region. So they kind of have Chernihiv, and a lot of people are in the city, and then a lot of people are kind of spread out through the villages. And then they also had trainings in Zhytomyrska region. But when I was there, so I met these volunteers. They told me about Peace Corps, and I was like, I want to apply, but also at the same time, to join the Peace Corps, you have to have a bachelor's degree, which I didn't have at the time. But I knew I knew Russian, I knew the culture, I knew the kind of how to live there. So I was just like, well, why not? Why I should just try and apply for it. Got in. There was some guy, some turd. He was like, "You're not gonna get it. You don't have a bachelor's degree." And I got in. So I showed him. But so I got in and was there for it's 27 months, 2 years on their site, 3 months of training before that. Did training for 3 months, and that was when I really started learning Ukrainian more, because one, they only did Ukrainian. They didn't do before. I think 2014 they had Russian and Ukrainian language training, depending on where you were going to go to in the country. And then after 2014, there was like a 2 years probably when they didn't even have the organization here. And then they restarted it, and it was only Ukrainian language. And I wanted to really, I had kind of 2 wishes. When I was going through the training, you have like interviews about where they would want to place you in the country, and I said I want to go to a place that's Ukrainian speaking, and I want to go to a city. I don't want to go to if I do go to a village, I don't want to be far from a city. And I went to a village about 2 hours away from Chernivtsi, and that was the closest city, and that was. I wasn't too happy about that, but looking back, I'm pretty happy about where I was in the Peace Corps. And so I was in a small village about probably 10 miles or whatever, 20 kilometers north of Moldova, in a small village there. And the village it's called Buzovitsa is the village, and there's about 1,500 people in the village, and I worked in a school with children. In the Peace Corps, there's a couple different, what's the word? Napram.
Streams?
Yeah, not
Direction?
directions of volunteering.
An interesting situation.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be doing that. I do that often, especially when I'm here. I forget words in English, and I remember them in Ukrainian. But so there's youth development, there's teaching English as a second language, and then there's, I don't know what it is necessarily, but it's like citizen development, where you're working with NGOs. You're not going to be working with kids, but you're working with different non-government organizations, or you're even working with different communities within their kind of government to help decentralize and plan projects for whatever that village or that city. But I was in youth development, and then I went to the village, and they were expecting, oh, we have an American, we're gonna do English. And I was like, I don't wanna do English. But that's kind of like you're in when you're starting, is English clubs are big. But my main thing was just after school activities, making an after school program for the kids, working with them, developing them, working on different projects. I also wrote a grant to get computers for the school. So we got different technology for the school.
And you got the computers?
Nice. Yeah, and so like I had to write a grant, and the project idea was like a journalism club. So we're gonna get all this technology. We never did a journalism club, but we got the computers. So we got the computers, which was nice, and then also working with other volunteers across the country. So a lot of volunteers will write grants for different camps. And I worked at a sports camp in Ternopil, which was probably like the best week, because I got to coach baseball, and I played baseball growing up, and it was a lot of fun. It was chaos. And then another camp that I did was in Frankivsk Oblast, and it was just like it's kind of an art camp, and every volunteer that came, they had to kind of create a project for the kids that like 1 hour a day they would take the kids and then like do art stuff. And so with the kids we did like I had no idea what I was gonna do, and so I was like, we're just gonna do dance videos. And so we would just walk around nature, dance, and then like put music to it, and it turned out really well.
Nice.
And so that was kind of in the village. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. I had a lot of dark moments, but good moments in the sense of I learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about people, started learning more about psychology.
What was it that was not that great?
I think, well, I was the one American. I mean, when you're a volunteer, you're
just the feeling like, I don't know, alone?
Alone,
okay.
Not yes, but also the fact that like I had to plan like projects for the school, and it was very difficult for me to kind of to persuade the especially like the director of the school, who was very kind of like Soviet minded and like didn't understand my ideas. I remember one time I wanted to do like a video with all the teachers, where like it was like a funny video where they're the students, and then they're all excited about this new English teacher, and then I come in and they're all kind of saying weird stuff, and I presented this, and then one of the teachers is like, "Не поняла," and she was like, "I don't understand anything." And then I was just like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. But it was just difficult because also I had to work with the students, but I also have to work with the teachers and all of the people. And in the village, of course, your job is as a teacher, but also you have your hudoby. And
cattle?
Yeah, just any animals, or you have your garden, and you have all this work outside of your real work.
Where were you living in the village? Were you like living with a family?
So for the first 3 months, I was living with a host family, and that was really nice. And
did you have to take the cow out to the pasture?
No, they didn't have cows. They had pigs. But I did. I did have. So I was with them for 3 months. Learned how to drink samohon, and I ate srizhina, and it was nice. But the mother and I we had like, one, I didn't understand anything she ever said. She spoke super fast, and she worked in the forestry, like it was like a forestry department within the village, and she worked with all these men, and she spoke like them, and it was just impossible for me to understand anything she was saying. And but so I was with them for 3 months, and then I moved out, and I lived in the regional center about 10 kilometers away. from the village, and I had an apartment, and I was there for a year. But then I wanted to kind of go back to the village and find a place in the village. So I rented a house in the village, and I didn't have like gas heating. I had a gas stove, but I didn't have like heating. I shit on the street, and
you didn't have like an outhouse?
No, I did.
You would shit on the street,
well, like,
Colin? That's what we get for inviting Americans here. They're just shitting all over our street.
In the box, it gets all sweaty, and so it's easier to do it outside. That was actually like the most enjoyable part. Just living kind of in the village with having to I had to chop wood all summer to get ready for the winter, and then was heating my house with that wood.
How long did you live like that in your own
year.
house?
So I was in the village. I was with the host family for 3 months, and then in the regional center for a year, and then in the village.
Would you ever go back to that lifestyle, like living in the village, like having your own house?
I would love to.
It's so close to the nature. That could be like it's very good, healing, therapeutic.
It is. I'm honestly I liked that. I liked living in that kind of environment. And all my struggles were more just like working with the people. It wasn't. I didn't have struggles really managing my house. And then also I had they call it a counterpart. It's the person you work with in the school who's kind of assigned to be responsible for you. And she's one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She's very just self-sacrificial, makes sure that she puts everyone else above herself. And her husband, he helped me a lot with like getting the wood. He got me the axe. I remember I broke the axe handle about a month after using it, and I returned it to him, and he's like, "I'm surprised you didn't break it earlier," just because he saw my form and how I was chopping wood. So
he's too strong for that axe.
Yeah. Well, and then he fixed it, and then I broke it again, and then he fixed it, and then I broke it again. But it was an adventure. I liked where I lived. My neighbors, they had a massive garden, and they were like, whenever you want, just take whatever you want. You can come into our garden, take whatever you need. Counterpart, I would basically be at her house almost every day, hanging out with her, and she had internet and
was her on the internet,
and she had a washing machine, so I would do laundry at her place, and I had a well at my house, but I stopped using it after I found a dead mouse in my well. So I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But in this situation, we usually say that whatever happened, it was a great experience.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it was extremely difficult, but it was good for me, and it showed me how you can be self-sufficient, even though I didn't really live off the land because they had grocery stores, and
I have a question. How old were you at the time?
I was 21 to 23, so I was.
That's a good age for that type of experience, because you're self-sufficient. It's sort of like becoming a man sort of ritual. Yeah, because you have a house, you're chopping wood and stuff. You get to find out if a lifestyle like that is for you or not.
Yeah, and so it was good. It was a challenge. I had very difficult moments with the people that I worked with, but I also, I remember one time the lady from the regional center who kind of set up, because for these schools or organizations to get volunteers, they have to apply, they have to go through a process, and she was kind of responsible for that in the regional center. And so I would go and see her, and I remember one time she called me, and she's like, "Yeah, they say you're not doing anything," and she was like, "Включайся до роботи," and I was just not. I was pissed, but she also was not wrong. She was not wrong, and so I kind of started getting my act together and figuring stuff out. Even though I look back and I think, I could have done more. I could have been more. Less I'm a very agreeable person.
You can always do more.
Yeah, well, I'm just
you got plenty of time ahead of you. So
I'm a very agreeable person. So it's very hard for me to be pushy. And so if I was gonna go back, I'd be more pushy and be like, "No, we're gonna do this, or I'm out." Like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and even if you don't understand or like it, we're going to do it. We're going to try
All
it.
the
We're going to
teachers
try it.
are going to be dancing tectonic.
Yeah.
It's happening. And if not, I'm walking out. I wanted to ask you, do you still are you still in touch with other volunteers from all of these like volunteering experiences
There's
you had?
probably two, and before I left the States this time, I met up with two of them. But really, I speak to a lot more of like the Ukrainians that I met during my time there. But there's really just two people that I kind of connect with, and I'll probably message them every once in a while. One of them, he speaks like he speaks good Ukrainian, but he just speaks like perfect for here. Like he speaks Sorjik because he's an American, but the way he would learn, he would just go to people on the street. He never read like grammar books. I think now that might be changed. I think he's taken some like actual lessons and can really whatever. He can tell the difference between Sorjik and Ukrainian. But when he was here, he was just basically speaking a very mixed language, and but he's an interesting person because he would just go up to random people on the street, talk to them. He would practice and not be like most people where they're embarrassed and ashamed of their language, and I couldn't do that, but he learned the language within like a year, and he just was crushing it. And now he's dating a Ukrainian in the States, but he's and then another kind of close friend that I was with in the Peace Corps. But other than that, I don't really care for them.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me. How long did it take to you to learn Ukrainian?
I learned Ukrainian very quickly because I learned it within a couple months. But that was because I spent a lot of time learning Russian, and so after learning Russian, it was basically just learning new words.
Did you study Russian in America before?
I did when I was like 17. So after my first time being in Transcarpathia in Vinogradov, I was like, I want to learn Ukrainian and I want to kind of start studying it more. And then my aunt was like, don't learn Ukrainian, learn Russian, because it's just more widespread, it'll be more useful. So I started learning Russian, and Russian probably from when I was like 17 to like 21, so like 4 years, it was a struggle. But then when I lived in Chernihiv, obviously I started learning it a lot more intensely and had to speak with the people that I was around, and I avoided English speakers when I could, but So I would say, like, with Russian, I kind of learned within about 4 years, with 1 year of living in Chernihiv. Ukrainian, I would say about a year. After that, I picked it up very quickly. And when you're in the Peace Corps, the first 3 months with training, you have 4 hours every day of Ukrainian intense language learning.
Well, your Ukrainian is obviously very good because you're performing in stand-up in Ukrainian and you're doing really well. Like, all the comedians think that you're funny.
That's good.
They haven't convinced me yet, but... Okay, so how long have you been living in Lviv?
I've been in Lviv. It's hard.
And why Lviv?
Well, Lviv because of school, like, because I'm going to school here. But I'm in my 4th year for school. I'm about to finish up my bachelor's degree. But like the last 10 months, I was in the States, and then before that, COVID, I was in the States. Probably, I can't remember how long I was in the States for COVID.
Oh, so you've been going back and forth.
Yeah, and because like during COVID, I was here at the start of COVID, and then I left probably like 2 months after it started, and then I can't remember when I came back after COVID. I can't remember how long I was in the States for, or what I was even doing in the States during that period. But I mean, about 4 years. I mean, probably more like a little under 3 years officially, but like
that's
4
interesting.
years.
So something got you coming back to Ukraine again and again.
Yeah, because America's just too easy. It's just too.
How's it too easy?
Well, I'm just lazy there. And when I'm living there, I just feel like I don't have any challenge. And then here, I sleep better here. I have more. I feel like I have more purpose here. In America, I mean, America's cool. I love America. I'm very grateful that I'm that I have American passport, and I can show the conscript officer if he comes and gives me povistka or whatever that's called. I could just be like, well, I'm American, and I'm very grateful for America. And I love America, and I am biased towards America. But it's just for me, I just don't feel challenged enough there. And if I lived with my parents, which was fine, but I realized if I move out of my parents' house, then I feel like I'm making a new step in my life to kind of stay in America. If I move out in somewhere and move to another city or move to another apartment, then I feel like that I'm kind of binding myself to whatever that new life is.
But you don't see yourself.
Yeah, I don't see myself there, and I see myself here, but I don't know what I like. I don't know what the future will be.
What is it you think that makes you sleep better here?
I think it's, well, right now, I mean, so I'm going to do a little psychology lesson. We have two systems kind of thinking, and there's system 1 and system 2. System 1 is just intuition. You don't have to really actually think. So when you're speaking in just like a free conversation, you're not really thinking much. But when your system 2 is, you're putting a lot of effort into it. So if I say, what is 17 times 24? Do it in your head. You have to start thinking hard. And it takes a lot more effort, takes a lot more energy. And so when I'm here in Ukraine, I have to think more. I have to be more, I have to put a lot more effort into my speech. I put a lot more effort into just even managing what I'm doing in a different culture. I have to put more effort into that. And so it's difficult, but I do feel that tiredness but I just fall asleep quicker. I feel more tired at night. And I think it's just because of, like I said, in America, I'm lazy. I don't have to do anything. I can get through the day doing nothing. And if I want to grow in America, I have to be a lot more, I have to put more intent into what I'm doing. I can get by through America very easily. But here I can do it here too, but I have to still do it in another language.
So conditions in Ukraine are more encouraging for you to
exactly.
grow.
And so I'm more tired, and I like that more. And it's difficult sometimes because like I was with a friend last night, before I was like, I don't know, I'm tired. I don't want to have to go and speak Ukrainian for a couple of hours with him.
I don't want to go speak Ukrainian.
Yeah, and it was just like I'm tired.
It's so exhausting to speak Ukrainian. I already said like 5 Ukrainian words today.
And so
I need a nap.
Yeah, I know. And so I hung out with him, but I realized like because sometimes I tell my friends like in Ukraine, especially if they don't speak English, I'm like, I can't be around you. I need a break from Ukrainian language.
But at the same time, you said you're trying to stay away from English speakers in Ukraine.
Well, that was when I was learning, and that's not, and that's also not just because of English. It's more of like I just don't like foreigners here.
Right?
I don't like people coming to Ukraine being foreign. And
sometimes it's very strange because like there are people from your home country that you bump into, and everything seems like you have to hang together and like be friends. But if you were in your home country, you would never hang out with that person.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
that happens
and
a lot.
that's part of it. And at this, I mean, now it's maybe a little different. But before I was like, I just don't want to find someone where I'm like dependent on English speaking. And I was just really wanted to learn the language. And I knew that if I found a good friend that spoke English, I wanted, because I've seen people that have lived here forever, but they don't speak the language because they just have their kind of own American English bubble.
Yeah, I mean, in Lviv, in Kyiv, you don't even have to learn anything. You can get along just speaking English. Like in all of the restaurants and at service industry personnel, they all speak English in Lviv and Kyiv. Yeah. Well, I've been when I moved to Ukraine, which is just a little over 2 years ago from Canada, and I started going to English-speaking clubs and seeking out other English speakers, and yeah, I've made a few friends, and like I still stay in touch with that community, and that's basically who we organize English open mics for, and English stand-up concerts for. Yeah. Maybe you should check it out.
I know, I do.
There's a lot of like English meetups.
Yeah, I would like to. I would like to do that.
Because it's not only like foreigners.
Yeah.
It's also local.
I would want to do it for the locals. I don't care about the foreigners.
I brought Valeria out to one of those meetings, or few, or one or
one or two. I don't remember.
Well, I remember we ended up in a restaurant, or was that like a private party? I don't even remember what was happening.
It was like a private party.
But it was like an English club. Sort
but
of.
it was
how did you
just
feel in that environment?
Tell us your feelings.
It was interesting to me to meet new people.
Yeah, I bet it was. All the men were hitting on her. All the like old gross men.
Yeah, I know. I definitely avoid old gross men. They always hit on me, and I'm tired.
We got free food though.
But after that, there was one guy that wanted to go with me to the opera.
Ah. And?
Did you end up going? No? No. It's too bad. I've never been to an opera.
But I do notice, like, I want to say, like, this is a thing I've noticed, and maybe it's, but I notice Eastern European men that speak English, they're weird for me. I don't know what it is. They're just, there's something, well, and I think it's because I have...
The secret is they're all kind of weird.
Well, yes, yeah, but in English, I think it's just because they're expressing themselves. I remember one time I was in Moldova, and I was with a family there, and this adult son was speaking to me in English, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I loved San Francisco. It was such a nice city. Just walking across the bridge and seeing all that, and I was like, oh, you've been to San Francisco? And he's like, no, I just Google Maps, and just walked with Google Maps, and then he was like, yes, I love. He saw some lady, he's like, oh, she's a very nice lady. I like the big, thick ones, because when you make love, you feel it. And I'm like,
wow.
I don't even know you.
That's very honest.
It is honest. It is honest.
That's what I like about Ukrainians here. They're very open and honest. Yeah, very straightforward. A lot of foreigners, a lot of like North American people don't like that, because people here don't seem friendly.
Yeah.
But they're just being honest with you. Like, there's nothing for me to smile about. Like, why should I be greeting you with a smile? Yeah. But then when you have a conversation with a person you don't know very well, the conversation is like a friendly conversation right away. You know, like you kind of like feel like you know each other, rather than in North America, it's all about like politeness and like. You say, hi, how are you? You smile, and like you act like you're friends, but
when you're at the store,
but actually you don't want anything to do with that person.
When you're at the store, the clerk will be like, how's your day going?
Yeah, it's like, do you really give a fuck about my day?
And just for me, it's strange a little, because I've met some foreigners, and when I said that I'm from Kharkiv region, they said, oh, we are so sorry. And where is it? And
where in Kharkiv region?
It's maybe 15-20 kilometers.
Do you know Pervomaisk?
Yeah.
That's where my grandma's from.
Oh.
Yes, that's where my grandmother's from.
So only one grandma is Ukrainian? Or?
Yeah, so my grandma and grandpa, I mean my...
both grandparents.
Yeah, both grandparents on my father's side. Unfortunately, I never met them. So my dad, I'm Yevhenovich. I'm son of Eugene. And his dad died when he was 4, and then his mom died when he was about like 21. So even my mom never knew them. And after my grandpa died, at home they stopped speaking Ukrainian, and my grandma, at that time it was just really important for her to become an American and speak English. And so my 2 uncles, they both speak Ukrainian. I have an aunt who speaks Russian, and then my dad, he's the youngest of all the kids, and he doesn't know Ukrainian, but he will write me like I'll call him and he'll say "Do побачення."
So, where in America are you living and your family?
Yeah, so Washington State.
All of them?
No, I mean, well, my parents live there, and then I have sisters that live across the country.
I was just curious about the Ukrainians in Washington. Is there like a diaspora scene? Are there schools?
In my city?
Out?
There's a big Slavic like community, and then in Seattle, I think there's a lot of people from Eastern Europe, but I never really, unfortunately, that's one of my like regrets, is not really getting involved when I was in the States with Ukrainians, because I knew there were refugees and but also I had kind of bad experiences with just like, there's a sense over there and it was just generally Slavic people, just there's a sense of betterness, not bitterness, better. I always got this sense. Well, it's just they kind of they have their own community, they stay within their own community, they kind of, I've worked with a lot of them, and they kind of talk poorly about just Americans in general.
So like snobby.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a sense of snobbiness. I actually do have some really, really great friends from the Slavic community, and we were really close. We haven't talked for a while. It's just people grow apart. But so it's not everyone,
of course.
But there were some. It just felt like they're within their own community, and also like just. They don't need to follow the rules, and they kind of bring their own culture, which is whatever. That's how it goes. But because whenever I would try and like speak Russian or Ukrainian with them, they would kind of like, we don't want to talk to you.
Just they don't want to talk to you at all, or
at all.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, Ukrainians in America have it tougher than they do in Canada, because it's hard to get a green card.
Yeah, but
I feel like it's way hard, and then you can't leave, and maybe they're a little more better than Canadian Ukrainians.
Yeah,
that's
I have relatives from Ukraine in Canada. I haven't met them.
Because Ukrainians in Canada, they're all very close.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a lot of diaspora, and many schools, churches, community halls and stuff.
Yeah, but I never I grew up in just like a super American family, and my dad. I didn't even know what Ukraine was until I was like 16 or 17, and so I never knew the culture. I think I might have had a vyshyvanka when I was like 4, but that was it.
So I was curious about when did your grandparents move to America?
So
from Kharkiv.
Yeah, so my grandma, my grandma was born in 1925. And my grandpa was in 1923. My grandma, she lived through Holodomor, and then she lived through World War II. And I guess her village was on the front line for a long time, so she experienced a lot of the violence during World War II. And then the Germans took her village, occupied further, and they said every family needs to send one person from their family to Germany to go work. And so they said, you'll return, we'll take you for 6 months and you'll return. And she didn't return for another 27 years. With my grandpa, he was in Ternopil region, and there was just an opportunity to go work in Germany, and so he took that opportunity, and that's where they met. And so they were in a work camp in. What
a story! Ukrainians from different regions meeting in Germany, moving to America, having a son, and then their grandson decides to move back to Ukraine.
Yeah, I know.
Netflix.
Well, I'm trying to think of a bit around that they moved to America for the American dream, for their kids and their grandkids, and they're looking at their Natasha. She's doing great. Lauren, she's a lawyer. Colin, what is he doing? So after World War II, and during World War II, there was a time where my grandpa was even in a concentration camp. I think it was for like punishment for some reason. And then after the war ended, they were in Germany, I think, for maybe another 2 or 3 years at a refugee camp, and there was some sponsor out of Minnesota that sponsored them, and they made their way to the States. Wow. And my uncle was born in Germany. My other uncle, he was my grandma was pregnant with him when they were crossing the ocean, and I guess she was sick the whole time because it was at the start of her pregnancy, and she was just terribly sick.
Wow.
And then they had 3 other kids after that. And my father was the youngest.
Wow. Well, that's a nice story. Thank you for sharing
You're
that.
welcome.
Seems like I watched a short movie.
So what I wanted to ask you today mainly was about your experience because during the full-scale war, because you were here when it started, and then you decided to go back to America, but it was exactly a year ago because, well, around a year ago, because today is the anniversary of Kulturna obrona.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember you performed at one of the first Kulturna obronas before you were leaving.
Yeah, I messaged Bogdana.
You showed your ass on camera.
I didn't show my ass, just my thigh. Yeah,
Okay.
my thigh. Oh, my thigh. I haven't gotten
any new tattoos?
I haven't got. No, I don't have any new tattoos. I haven't gotten to the point where I'll show my ass yet.
Well,
you have to look deep.
I can help
you have to
think
look.
about
You have to look
a
deep
tattoo
into.
idea.
You have to look deep into the internet to find those videos. But
tramp stamps.
but
I love Ukraine.
No, I woke up on the 24th and looked at the news. I think it was like 5 or 6 in the morning. I looked at the news, saw that Russia had attacked, and then I called my parents and was like, everything's, fine with me. I'm still alive, and called them, and then we had class in a couple of hours. But I just was like, I want coffee. I need coffee. So I went to McDonald's, but they were already closed, and so I was just standing outside of McDonald's, and it was interesting because I was standing outside of McDonald's. The sirens were going off. The voice was saying we're going into whatever voyenny stan, and I just had this like deep like feeling like, oh, something's not right. Obviously, in my mind I knew something was right, but I never felt it. You can realize it just by thinking about it. Obviously, something's not right, but to feel it deep in your body that something's not right was a very weird experience for me.
Were you scared?
I wasn't. It's hard to say whether I was scared or not. I was just kind of in a state of confusion. Like it was just like what's going on, what's going to happen, and then after that I went back home. We had class, and since I study psychology, like all my professors
You just had class on that day?
Well, all our professors are psychologists, and they were like, we need to have class just to talk to the students about what's going on. Well, it wasn't a real class. It was just the teacher talking with us.
Checking in on you.
Yeah, and saying kind of, here's what you can be doing to decrease whatever anxiety you're feeling. You don't need to be kind of like taking your bags and running towards the border. And then after that, I went into the office where I had worked because they have coffee. And so I got my coffee and was just kind of sitting there talking with some others. And there's Americans there. I was talking with them. And then a little bit later, one of my classmates, she wrote me and was like, hey, my dad's going to come pick me up to go to Sambir. If you want to come and just kind of chill out and have a place to stay for a week or for however long. I only stayed there for a week. So you can come with us. So he came and picked us up. I was there for a week. And then after that, my friends, they were planning to come to Europe at that time. So I left and went to Poland and met my friends in Amsterdam, and we were in Amsterdam and Germany for a little while. I remember in Germany, it was my birthday, and we were at some pub, and I was really concerned because I have a lot of friends in Chernihiv, and at this time Chernihiv was surrounded, and it was just going through a terrible violence there in Chernihiv. And one of my friends, the last time I saw he was online was like March 5th, and I couldn't like connect with him. And he called me in Germany, and when I was there, and unfortunately I still had my Ukrainian SIM card, he called me And I didn't recognize who it was at first. And he's like, yeah, it's Kolya. And I started just bawling, just crying my face out there in the bar. It was just like, it was so good to hear from him. And he said like he was fine. He was with his wife, and they went to her parents' place in a safe like village, far enough away where it wasn't too bad. But I know that like, it's interesting because I know Ukrainians, like if you're in a village, as long as there's no violence, but you can get by with no water and no gas or electricity. I mean, you'll have water from the well, you won't have, but you'll have
village.
Yeah, you'll have your resources to get by for a long time. But then I was in Germany, and then I came back to Ukraine, and that's when I did when I did that set.
So how long did you come back for?
2 weeks, and I was here for 2 weeks, and
then you went back to America.
And then I went back to America. But I was here for 2 weeks, and Biden was doing a speech in Poland. And I remember that day when he was in Poland, they hit like some oil facility not far from my apartment. And so I heard the explosions. And I wanted to volunteer. I wanted to find something to do. But it was just, everything was so chaotic, and I didn't really have a network. I figured that if you have a good network, you can do stuff. But if you don't, it's a little bit more difficult. And so I was like, I can go home, I can go work, live with my parents, get back on my feet, do school from home, and then come back when I...
Wait, so were you doing school, Ukrainian University still in America?
Yeah, I was
so
doing
that's
it.
what you've been doing.
Yeah. So I was doing it online at like 3 in the morning, which was really fun.
Oh,
that's the perfect time for psychology lessons. It's really,
I would sleep a lot during the class, but actually when I was... it was nice because when I was in the States, I worked as a janitor, and my job was from like 6 p.m. to like midnight, and then I would have class like at 2 in the morning. So I kind of set up my schedule where I would just sleep during the day, and then...
that sounds like
So now
a
I
difficult
understand.
lifestyle, though.
Now I understand why he slept here better.
Yeah, well, you've been living in Ukrainian time all of this
Yeah,
time.
I know, I have.
You were like in Ukrainian time zone.
Yeah, but I didn't. I mean, the teachers also were like very super flexible about everything, and I should have failed everything, but I didn't because the teachers were
Well,
good.
congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
And now that you're back in Lviv, in Ukraine, so what have you noticed? What has changed?
I mean, obviously, like you just see more soldiers everywhere. Clearly, sirens they don't happen in America. What else? I mean, people here. I mean, especially like with my friends, everyone just seems. I mean, life goes on, and you obviously can talk about, and it's hard, and there's a lot of suffering, and people know that what's going on, but you can't let that stop you from getting out of bed in the morning and doing what you need to do to get through the day. But also like just, I don't really see much of a difference personally, besides just like the different, like the sirens and the soldiers, and there is a sense
People's attitude has changed.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've been here long enough to notice that.
Well, in the beginning of the full-scale invasion, everyone was really scared.
Oh yeah. Oh.
And now we're like, air alarm.
Yeah.
I can't get my coffee from McDonald's. Fuck. I'll have to go to some other place.
Yeah, so no, that definitely, I mean, and I wasn't here long enough at the start of the war to really notice stuff, because I mean, I also didn't have a life for those 2 weeks when I was here, and then that first week after it started, I was with like one family, and obviously at the start of the war, I being naive was like, this will end in a week. Yeah,
we all thought it would end really fast.
Orestovich doesn't help, and so, but yeah, so I think just that people are just more relaxed. Obviously, there's the anxiety still, and everyone knows it's in the back of their heads, but you got to keep living.
True.
Yeah. Have you guys been outside of the country at all since the war started? I know you have.
No,
Oh, no.
I don't.
Valeria just moved to Lviv from Kharkiv after the full-scale invasion. So that's why you haven't met her before. But she's also performing in stand-up battle club in Cult Comedy Hall.
But you did read one of my jokes.
Yeah. Yesterday.
You remember. I wrote a joke for Yazva and donated, and it killed.
Yeah.
It was a good joke.
What do you mean for Yazva?
Well, like for donations.
On the stream.
On the stream,
okay.
yeah.
Well,
it was,
what was the joke?
streams of
well, it was.
Yazva.
It's not my joke. It's like a joke that my dad would tell me about his mom. But it was whatever the. It was they were talking about sex and all that stuff, and it was a show about whatever toys. I don't know. I was just like, I just want to write a joke, and my joke was my grandma. I have advice about sex for my grandma. If a girl tries to take your pants off, run.
Okay.
That's the joke.
Well, good luck. I don't think your grandma loved you saying that, or she just.
But yesterday he was telling us jokes.
I was.
Yesterday he was telling us other jokes.
Yeah.
So.
Where were you performing yesterday?
Where you were performing, where we didn't perform.
Where
Right, because we were just bouncing some ideas around. Okay. Yeah. Yesterday's gig was not that awesome as it was supposed to be. Yeah.
Shit happens.
It does happen. It does happen.
And
Every morning
were
after.
you eager to get back to the stand-up?
Yeah, that was like the main reason I came back here was for school, obviously, but also over the last 10 months I've been writing a ton of jokes, and I was like, I just need to go perform these because I've been telling them to my friend, but when you tell it to your friend, they know your sense of humor, they know kind of, and especially this friend, she laughs at everything, so it's a little bit more dangerous to take those jokes and then take them to the stage.
I wish my friends were like that, because my friends are like, oh, this joke could use a little tune-up in here. It's like, what the fuck makes you a joke expert? Just tell me it's funny so I can go on stage with confidence.
Yeah. Well, and then I would tell my jokes to my friends in the States, and my two best friends are both extremely funny, and so it's very easy for us to make each other laugh, but they would be like, I don't get it. And I was like, well, okay, because one of them they definitely is joke authority in the sense of he knows a good joke from a bad joke, but I was like, I want to go back because I really want to test all these jokes, and now that I'm back, I'm like, I don't want to test any of these jokes.
Are you writing more jokes?
Well, right now, not really. I'm just going because I have just a list of all of these things I want to talk about and joke about. So I want to kind of go through all of that, check it out, see what hits, see what doesn't hit, and then I'll go back. But when I write, I don't really just an idea will pop in my head, and I'll be like, oh, that's funny, or there's a seed that I can work with and make it funny. So I don't really spend time writing. I just and if I have a joke, I'll just an idea will pop in my head, and I won't I'll write that idea and then I'll just go on stage and try and work it out, or I'll just be like, okay, how could I work it out where it might work? But then that's how you do it. You just gotta go and
do
feel
it.
shame.
Yeah. Stand-up comedian is always humble because you always have to go on stage and die on stage from time to time.
Yeah, all the time.
But when it's good, it's fucking good. That's why we all do it, because when that joke hits and they all laugh.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to me that guy went to America and came back to Ukraine to tell some jokes.
Yeah.
I wanted
so eager to tell
some
jokes.
jokes.
Yeah.
I know. And I could have.
Or whatever. I need to tell those jokes.
Yeah, school, of course, but I wanted to tell some jokes.
My biggest regret, one of my bigger regrets in the last 10 months is not doing open mics in the States. I only did one, and it went really well. And it was like 3 weeks ago, and it went really well. And but I wish I kind of, because a lot of my jokes, some of them Americans wouldn't understand just because they're Ukraine specific or specific to Lviv even. But a lot of them are general jokes where they would be able to hit a little bit harder. It depends on the country, but I wish I did that more there and worked out stuff.
No, that's definitely a good experience to see what the stand-up scene is in other cities and towns. Yeah, and you can bring that here. And
I just wish that when I was doing stand-up in Ukrainian, I felt as comfortable as, because I've done stand-up in Ukraine or in English here once, and then I did it in the States once, and I just felt so relaxed on the stage. Here, I just feel so frozen, and I just feel more robotic, and it's because it's in Ukrainian, and I think it's just takes time, and I also I just have to speak more Ukrainian. It's just to get it more comfortable.
More of a challenge, but you're doing really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, your Ukrainian is great. Me too, thanks.
Well, I was surprised with your Ukrainian.
But yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. I don't. What else?
So when I was performing in Toronto this fall, my jokes were hitting the best there because I grew up in Toronto and I was able to make like some inside references and it was awesome there. I really enjoyed it. I went to a lot of open mics, but what I didn't like about open mics in Toronto is that there are way too many comedians and not a lot of audience. Sometimes they would have a lineup of 40 comedians. Oh, there's no room for anyone else in that club. When there's 40 comedians. Yeah,
they need another one club just for the comedians to sit and wait.
And if you come in late and you get to put your name down on the sign-up sheet and you're one of the last ones, you're number, 36, 38, you have to stay there till 1 a.m. Wait, watch all of these other performances, and then you have to wait, and then...
There are still some audience for
the comedians who haven't performed.
What do you guys think of Schegel?
Of Schegel? That's what you want to know. Good-looking guy. I don't know. So have you watched the interview with him? The full interview?
No, I didn't watch the full thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, what he said was wrong, obviously. Should not have said that. So basically what he said is...
I didn't like when he said... I didn't like when he was like, I'm not comfortable there. And I'm like, no one's comfortable. No one is comfortable. Yeah. And that was it. That's all. That's my thought.
But I feel like people have a right to not feel comfortable. And,
what do you mean?
In a war zone, it's okay for women and children to leave the country. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's not safe to live here and have bombs flying over you. Then the guy has the right to have the same feeling.
I don't know about that.
It's just because we're in the war and men are not allowed to leave the country. It's not up to me to decide who can leave, but I don't think it's fair, honestly. But you can't leave the country, flee the war, and then make any sort of comments about people living in Ukraine, having any kind of judgment about Ukrainians in Ukraine and especially soldiers on the front lines.
What do you guys think about Macron?
I don't think about him much.
I don't think about him either. I just know he's French.
I heard that he's French. I heard a rumor that he is.
That kind of question that I can make answer in English.
That you can't make an answer? No. Or say it in
it's
whatever?
Hard to...
Yeah. Life's hard.
Yeah.
That's true. but hopefully you can help us out with that because you're studying psychology.
Yeah.
What's the secret? How do we make life less hard?
Oh, you got to take.
Or do you need to graduate?
No, you have to understand anxiety. What's anxiety? Which is ironic that like повітряна тривога, it's air anxiety.
Yeah,
I've always thought that's interesting. But anxiety is one of like my favorite topics about. And also I'm doing my. We can talk about anxiety, but I'm doing my bachelor's, like my coursework on humor styles and its relationship to resilience among Ukrainians and how there's different types of humor styles. There's aggressive, which is clear sarcasm, that kind of stuff. Then there's affiliative, which is being able to joke about situations. There's self-effacing, so like joking about yourself, putting yourself down. And then there's self-enhancing, which is joking kind of like to put yourself in a light. And so the two positive ones are affiliative and self-enhancing. And I have to do my research still.
You should start like a blog about this. You know, you're a stand-up comedian who's doing stand-up, who's researching all of this about jokes. Like, you should share this information.
Well, I'm going to.
Yeah?
I'm sharing it right now. I'm doing that.
It sounds very interesting. I would love to.
This second.
Yeah, okay.
It's going to be on the interwebs. Okay. But no, I have to still like create the enquete and send out because I'm gonna have people figure out what their humor style. They're gonna have to go through a couple like questionnaires to figure out what their humor style is, and then what types of coping strategies they use, and then how resilient they are.
That would be a fun questionnaire to give to people before the stand-up show or after the stand-up show.
Yeah, and I'm also one of the questions is like what kind of humorous content do you use, and if like say what it is, and then or say who your favorite like comedian is or your stand-up comedian is, and it'll be interesting to see like if there's a relationship between someone like if someone really likes Junko and they have really good resilience versus someone who has likes
yeah, that's an interesting research to do. I think Junko would love to have that information, but he would use it for evil.
Well, no, I'm gonna like, and that's the thing is I mean that's one of the questions on the questionnaire. I just have
Junko
to.
and evil.
I have to work that out with. I'm working on it with my advisor on that.
Fun fact for you: one of the residents of stand-up battle club, Yulia Riznachok, who is studying in
I know.
UKU.
I asked her
she
for her.
also published.
I asked her for her masterwork so I could get some of resources that she was using.
That's so interesting because like her masterwork was about basically our stand-up club, and now you're referencing Zunko.
Well, no, I asked her. I'm gonna use. I don't know if I'm going to use anything, but I want to read her master's work to see if I can use it in any of my research too. So
cool.
But, that's interesting, and so that's something.
Because she was analyzing like performances by like the most well-known comedians like Anton Timoshenko, Nastya Zuchvala, and she like analyzed it, what their strategy to presenting their comedy material is like, and it's quite interesting. She shared some ideas with me.
Yeah. So, no, I'm hoping I'll be hopefully sending out those questionnaires next week.
So if it's a questionnaire that you can do online, maybe we can provide the link under this video, because this video is not going to come out anytime soon.
Yes, I know. I don't know.
You'll have plenty of time to prepare it.
Well, I will do that. And I don't know what like deadlines I have right now. And I've gotten most of my like theory written and my hypotheses somewhat structurized, but yeah, I'm curious to see kind of how people use humor and how resilient they are, and then it's also going to be Ukrainians and Americans, so to see a difference between humor styles of Ukrainians, difference of humor styles of Americans, and then how that could be affected by being in a country at war. Also, I'm going to be asking among different types of Ukrainians, such as Ukrainians who had to flee, Ukrainians that didn't flee, Ukrainians that fled the country, and not just to the west side of the country. So
That's, I think that's a sign that we need to wrap it up.
But I wanted to ask, what kind of humor is closer to you?
I don't know. I have to. I think.
You're in searching.
Yeah.
Still searching?
Well, no. I think I'm pretty good at like self-effacing. So I'm good at like talking about how I'm an idiot and dumb and I hate myself. But also at the same time, I'm really cool. And so I'm good at joking about myself in that way. No, I am decent at all. I don't really know necessarily what
humor do you like?
What humor do I like from others?
From others.
Yeah.
I like dry humor. I mean, that's not a psychological like category. Dry humor.
You're planning to ask other people these questions, and you can't even answer.
Well, I haven't done the questionnaire. I haven't gone through the questionnaire yet. And there's also, I mean, I like dry humor. My favorite comedian of all time is his name's Norm Macdonald. He's Canadian. Do you know? He's my favorite comedian of all time, and he has very just dry humor, and also he just the way he speaks is just funny. And so even if it's like one of his jokes, he just says the word whatever after like talking about something, and it's not even like a joke. It's just the way he says it, and it's just hilarious. And that's what I like is he's very like super smart, but when he's on stage, he's just a regular person. Like he's not some comedians want to look really smart and be really intelligent and show that they're witty and super read a lot of books, but he's the opposite. He's like, well, first of all, if you're gonna make people laugh, like being a nerd and showing that you're smarter than people, they're not gonna laugh at you. They're just gonna hate you. Like it's way easy. You're gonna hate the person that's smarter than you. If the person's dumber than you, then it's easier to like them.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
He'll be a bachelor. Psychology.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Any other favorite comedians you
I like Louis C.K., Dave Chappelle, kind of like the classic. But and then there's another one. He's kind of newer, Mark Normand. But my favorite of all time is Norm Macdonald. And he has a stand-up special called Me Doing Stand-Up. It's my favorite
that's
special.
Funny already.
But yeah, that's my life. That's who I am. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you're very passionate about what you do, what you study, and I wish you best of luck in, your stand-up career and with your psychology degree, hopefully.
Thank you.
You get it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, thank you for watching this episode of Peace Talk podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed our conversation with Colin. So please give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and in the comments below, please tell us what was your favorite moment of this podcast and who else you would like to see as our guest. Okay, thanks. Bye.